Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast, conversations, revelations, and inspirations behind the books. It's time for our segment, Literary Commentary. Thank you for listening.
Good evening, listeners. I'm Amy Shannon, and welcome to Literary Commentary.
And I'm Talia Haven.
Well, it's been a minute. So now we are headed into May. So this is it seems like this year is kind of going slow and then fast. I have just a few releases I wanted to announce. Let's see here. Author Jason Irwin, his book is coming out on May 5th, and it's called These Fragments I Have Shored. And on also on May 5th, author Kawan, his book, House of the Rising Sun. I actually had the privilege of speaking with him for a future episode. He was a very nice man. Then we have Bud Spencer. His book is coming out on May 10th, and it's called Angel Effect. And then on May 21st, we have Lucille Garino. Oh, God, she's going to kill me. Smoky Blue Sunrise. So look for those books coming out this month. So, kind of head up. May is Older Adults Month. I don't know how old you have to be an older adult, so I'm going to celebrate me. I figure I'm an older adult that acts like a child, so it doesn't really matter. But with that, we're going to discuss authors who actually kind of started out their writing career when they were an adult, older adults. That is one thing that I've talked to authors all over the world, and I have reviewed books since 2014, and a lot of times I have met or even just through email authors that they're in their 40s and 50s and 60s on up, and then they decide that they have a book in them, and they don't just say I should write a book. They actually sit down and they do it. Some find out that they're poets and they didn't even know it, and others realize they have either a bunch of short stories in them, or they want to write their memoirs, or they just want to write fictional novels. So I find that really interesting. I had a friend of mine. He was in his 80s, and he wrote a book, and he had a lot of stories that he could tell. He would talk to me about them, but he said for people to read, he only had one story that he wanted to share, and he was able to do that. And I helped him do that, and it made me feel very good. He passed away last year, but he was a very nice man. And sometimes he would see something and he's like, "Oh, should I do that?" And I'm like, "You already did, like a promotion or something." So I'm like, "You already did that." He's like, "Oh," I'm like, "You can't do it twice." But he was looking for any opportunity. And today I was actually I had to reorganize all my books and put them on a new bookshelf, especially all the ones that authors send me. And I found his book that he had signed, and I was like, that just kind of was what made me think of to bring him up today, because I just, uh, you know, I cherish those books, especially when I know the people, or at least I've connected with them. We talked on the phone, we texted. When he was in the hospital, he stole his phone so he could text me, even though it didn't make any sense at all. But he tried. So I guess there are other some more you mentioned there's some I don't what do you call it? I don't want to say famous, but um authors that started late, writing later on in their years.
Yep. We're going to talk about Anna Sewell, who wrote Black Beauty. She was at the age of 57. And this book actually sparked the movement for animal welfare back in the 1800s. She
Wow.
was injured as a child and she spent most of her life bedridden. She pushed through it and got it published in 1877. And she did get to see her work published. She died at the age of 58 in 1878. This is her only work, and it sold millions of copies, and it's still in print today.
Oh, that makes me
Yeah,
want to go and get another copy. I read that in elementary school.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
realize it was that old.
yeah. It could be kind of interesting to find out how much a first edition would sell for
Oh
of
yeah,
a Black
definitely.
Beauty, 1887 or
Oh
1877, excuse me. Yeah, it was
yeah,
the only
that.
one, and she did get a chance to see it in print, and then she died a few months later. So we're going to move from prancing black ponies to bunny rabbits because Richard Adams wrote Watership Down. And he was 52 when he wrote it. And what inspired Watership Down was that he told stories to his daughters about rabbits. Um, and it was his best. He also wrote Majaya and the Plague Dogs. He too was a very strong advocate for animal welfare, and he passed away in 2016 at the age of 96.
Wow. So
Yep.
that's
Annie,
a very full life.
yeah, yeah. Annie Proulx is 53, is the first novelist. Her first novel was Postcards, but this I found very interesting about her. She is still currently alive, but she was the author of the short story Brokeback Mountain. And they
Is
actually
that
made
the one
that into
movie?
a movie. Yep.
Oh, so that was I never watched it or read the book, but I when I thought that it was the same thing because it just seemed too coincidental.
Yeah. And I found it interesting that it was based off a short story, but Brokeback Mountain. And she is still alive. And her first novel, I do believe I said, was Postcards, which I've never read.
No, I've never read that. I've heard of it. I've never read it. There's so many. I have such a pile.
Yes.
And sometimes when you read it, when you're reading a book, you don't necessarily, sometimes you can tell how the, around the age of the author. Um, and other times, you couldn't, if you didn't know their name or they just had a generic, pen name. Um,
Yep.
what I like is that you can't tell whoever wrote it, whether they're, what their gender is or their age. Uh, that shows to me that's like a level of maturity with writing. I have read books from people that were 20 something and they're writing about vampires and but like vampire romances and they talk like they're teenagers, and it's like, well, if a vampire has been he's immortal, so he's been around for thousands of years, is he going to talk like a teenager? So I there's some telltale signs when you can kind of get a feel for what the author, the experience behind the author. I mean, if you're going to write for adult characters or immortal ones, then you should be able to know how they speak and it's like that. I have a character that my uh, my other characters tease him and say that he's older than God. But I make him talk like an old man. Like an older man would talk, from sayings from when he was growing up. Uh, and sometimes it actually rubbed off on my own vocabulary. My father used to laugh at me when I would say, and whatnot. He's like, "How old are you?" But yeah, so it's that is I find it so interesting. I always wonder, you know, and I ask people sometimes, um, so you started writing your book in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, 70s on up. And so what made that first thought of I'm going to sit down and write something, and sometimes they don't know. And other times they had wrote um when they were a lot younger, but then life gets in the way, your family, your job, whatever. And then finally when you're at a certain point, you're at a certain age where you don't have to take care of anybody but yourself, um then you can actually take time and reflect and uh start writing again. Then I know people that didn't even realize they could write, and something just made them sit down and they had a story in their head and they put it on paper and it grew from there. So I think that's very interesting. Like I've been writing my entire life. I mean, there were times when all I was in my spare time, I would write poems and stuff like that. And I didn't write my first novel till 2004. But I wasn't planning on it being a novel. I was thinking of a short story, and it just kind of grew from there. Uh, but I was in my 30s. That was so long ago. uh, but I had missed something. I was inspired by rereading the Little House on the Prairie books. And it kind of like, oh, I gotta start writing again because I knew something was missing, and that's kind of what got me going. And so I always found that was so, I find it interesting what makes somebody to sit down and write, and especially if they've never done it before, or I've noticed I've had authors that tell me that the only writing they ever do is say for their job, they're scientist or a tech person. They might have to write specs and reports and all that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
a lawyer who is all he's doing is writing briefs or whatever else that lawyers do. So I find that very interesting how all of a sudden they decide, yes, I'm going to try something new. And I think that's a, a good thing. People should try something new. Uh, if you're already a writer, challenge yourself. You did. You wrote short stories and then you wrote a full length novel. And you
Yes,
said the short story was a lot easier.
it is.
For me, it was like the other way around, going back to writing short stories. And but
Short stories is for me is very, very easy. I Novels make me cry at my keyboard and I do it a lot. I just, it's that daunting word count, it's like, oh, geez.
Yeah, I know, and I don't even look at that anymore. Uh, I know that there are a lot of writers that are like, they have to make sure, well, I got to write this amount of words or this amount. And I'm like, how can you do that? I just sit there and I'm like, okay, I write. I mean, my only superpower is that I can write a poem on command, but like, drop of the hat, just write something. But things change with your writing. My did my history, and I've been I did a companion cookbook, and I really enjoyed that so much that a new project that I'm working on is creating a cookbook that food pantries will be able to give out to people who have go there.
Mm-hmm.
So that way they know. And I've had to rely on them before too. And a lot of times you get something, you're like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? And so I am working on a project, and I'm going of different recipes, simple recipes, and um, ways to make things work. I grew up poor, but we always had food.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to joke with my kids that, I eat like a kid. And then the other day I was like, you know what? I don't eat like a kid. I just eat like I did when I was a kid. Those are kind of the meals that I like. And
Comfort foods.
yeah, exactly. And I've been watching a lot of these. They have like these old on YouTube. They have all these videos about food and depression eras, and what people did. Where now it would just be, you know, they sacrifice quality for convenience, and I find them very interesting, and they remind me of when I was a kid and eating, and the different tricks that your parents do to make sure your belly's full. And I always found that I don't know what it is about those videos. I just keep watching them, and it reminds me. It's like I'm like, oh yeah, I know that one. I mean, my grandmother used to make um, applesauce, but she would use red hot candies to spice it up rather than some people would add cinnamon to it. She
Yep.
would use red hot candies. And I always thought, oh, that's cool.
That is, it give it that beautiful kind of pinkish red tint too.
Oh yeah, I know. And I used to love it when she did that. And it was, and sometimes when um it was, you just didn't get that, got that nice, red hot flavor. So it's very different than just having a cinnamon applesauce, which is good. I like applesauce. I still eat it with pork chops. um, but it's that comfort when I have when I eat certain foods, they remind me of certain people. Like my great grandfather we used to do we used to eat ginger snaps and dunk them in our milk, but we couldn't let my grandmother know, which is my grandmother, his daughter. She was always, she didn't like crumbs in milk. So he'd look around the corner. He's like, coast is clear. And we dunk our ginger snaps, and then she'd come in, and we're just drinking our milk so he doesn't see the crumbs. But things like that can oh, just brings you back. Even if you lose your memories, there are things that can uh, bring you
Will
back.
trigger it. Yeah.
Yeah. They used to play. I would. I told when my dad was uh, dealing with his stuff, I would tell him to play certain music that he liked, and even though he didn't know what was going on, he still moved to the music. And I just found that was comforting. Uh, but yeah, there's those memories, and and if you, to anyone who's listening, if you have a story to tell, write it down. Share your family stories with your children. Um, Mine always tell me that I repeat myself, and I probably do. And I know I do. But I think those are like the most cherished stories that you can tell, even if, your grandparents, exaggerated a little bit, or, it doesn't matter. The fact that they would sit down and tell you a story. And if you know those, then, you can remember them, write them down. I think that is really important. So it can be passed on, because I believe that everybody has a story to tell, and everyone should be remembered.
Yep.
I find that very important. And when you know, and that's what I tried to do with my history book that I just published. It's just uh, after losing my dad, I just kind of got behind on promoting it, but it was, and I'm starting to do it. I My dad's cousin, well, he's my second cousin, but um, he's a local historian, so he wrote my forward, and he also is he's spreading the word for me as well. And I name drop him. I've been like, I'm using your name. He's like, that's okay. So I sent a letter to a congressman, a local congressman. And in the letter, I said, who my cousin was and stuff like that. And then he wrote the forward. And then he replied back saying, "Oh, thank you for keeping history alive, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Oh, by the way, tell Bill I said hello." And I emailed my cousin. I'm like, "You know him?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, he's the only Republican I ever voted for." Just thought it was so funny. But, like, older adults, they have stories in them. Even if they're not writing them down, they're telling you the stories. Your grandparents, your parents,
Yep.
mhm, even stories your kids will tell you. You don't know everything about the stuff they do, and sometimes you find out that they did something and they didn't tell you all these years. Literally, my son Lewis, when he was about 10 years old, 10 or 11, he cut his hand, he cut his thumb open, and it was really bad. It was just blood all over. And I'm like, I took care of him, brought him to the hospital. He had stitches. And I asked him what happened. And he said, "Oh, I was reaching behind the bed, and when the springs caught me. So when I got home, I tried to find this spring. I could never find it. So I was looking all over for it. And then last year, he told me that he was playing with a knife, and that's how he cut his thumb."
Oh.
Like, what? Well, thanks for that story. Like, I didn't want to get in trouble. I said, I just wanted to know I was looking all over for this thing so you wouldn't cut yourself again. Like,
You know how much time I wasted?
I know, I did. 'Cause I was looking all over the beds, and I'm like, where? There's no springs popping out. Oh, yes, I love my children.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
The things that you learn once they're adults.
Oh, I know. And I told my mother's stories too when I became an adult. So, but I thanked her for being as strict on me as she was, uh, because I think it made me a better person.
Yes.
I learned to be independent, and I also learned to be respectful and kind. And even when growing up, it's like I see things differently, like from when I was growing up, and then there's, kids that are growing up now. It's like I would never, even if I didn't like my parents, I loved my parents and I loved my mother, and I liked my mom. But at the time when I was a teenager, I didn't really like my dad too much. But I would never have ever thought of disrespecting him at all. I would swear at him, you know, anything. We kind of, it was like when he tried
You
to
know,
tell
you
us,
should you should write a short guide on how to parent. You could call it "How to Take the Wild Out of the Child," something catchy like that, and make it a parenting guide.
"Ah, yeah, I mean, really, I have, I've been wanting to, I've been working on a few projects and um, I always thought it would be, yeah, I mean, just because I grew up in a different era than my children, but have you seen the way some kids treat their parents? And,
Mm,
and I'm like, how dare you? You just
yeah,
kind of want to get smacked right upside the head. But I mean, my boys were
yep,
very respectful. They did. Um, I cut down on I don't swear very much. I do when I'm angry, but I just figured that, they would learn all the words they needed to learn in school. And some words that I didn't know and they had to tell me what they meant. But then I remember having to explain to my mother what certain swear words meant because she
yep.
said one loud and I'm like, Mom, you can't say that. She's like, why? I'm like, do I really have to tell you? She's like, oh, I just heard it. I'm like, that's not a good thing. I mean,
No,
I'm like, no, don't say that. Do what you normally do. And she's like, what do I normally do? I'm like, you say something that you like totally replace a swear word. Like she would always say, oh, fish.
yep.
You know, that's what she would say. And I'm like, do that. Don't say that word. But
Even though it's new and
yeah.
shiny.
And I don't want you to know that. And when you have to explain to your parent what something means, and sometimes I hear my boys, I mean, they're adults now, but I hear them playing their video games and I'm like, what does that mean? It's like I didn't know there's this phrase they call them when they're being salty. I didn't know what that meant until somebody explained it to me. They're just kind of being a jerk or something with the video games or something like that. Like they're complaining too much. I don't know. It took me forever to
Yeah, me
figure out
neither.
what a Karen was. I'm like, where'd she
Just
get
when you
that name?
come around, we speak English and leave out all that new slang.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sure, I say nifty and I don't say swell. The first time I said the word nifty in front of my children, Lewis is like, Mom, did you make up that word? I'm like, no. So this has been a very, I think uh, it's sharing stories and, if you feel like, you know, writing, you don't have to, the thing some people think about when they're writing, they're worried about technique, or like if they're writing poetry, they're worried about rhyming and stanzas, and you know, unless you're trying to create a specific type of verse, uh, just my advice is write for yourself. Don't worry if it's technically correct or not. Just write for yourself because not all your thoughts are grammatically correct.
Yep,
So, did we have any submission calls today before we conclude?
we do. Chicken Soup of the Soul, who I've talked about before, is in dire need of some more stories. It's entitled That Christmas Feeling. They've extended that until May 26th, and their word count is no longer than 1,200. If you go on their website, you will find that title, and there's a whole list of ideas. And they're extending that call. Apparently, they don't have enough, and that is
Oh,
until May 26th. And
well,
chicken soup pays well. I
yeah.
believe the last time I was on there, they were 250. So,
Wow.
that's pretty good. And you probably should recheck on that. I don't know if it varies from title to title and just what type of rights, but it seems to me that they've opened up on their rights too. It used to be you couldn't use it, that they took complete, and I think
Yeah.
now they've opened it up a little bit.
Well, that's good. I mean, they have a lot of um, there's a lot of stuff on their website. I visited a few times, and I've emailed them questions and stuff like that, and they were very good about answering my questions and what they were looking for, that kind of stuff. So yeah, they even if you just you're not sure, and you're looking on their site and you not sure what you're supposed to do, or you have any concerns or questions prior to submission, they have a way you can contact them, and they do get back to you. So that is one thing that is really good. I'm just going to throw this out there before I forget. Um, from It is now the start of the annual short story contest on Amy's Bookshelf Reviews and Podcast. You can go to the short story webpage. This time there's not really a limit on genre. There's a photo that I created and make a story from it. And it's only a $10 entry fee. And I'm also looking for authors who wouldn't mind being a judge as well. So if you're interested, you can contact me through my website. But I want to thank you, audience, for listening. Feel free to comment on this show or any show, and then you can join me again next week. And if you want to check out my work, just Google me. I'm Amy Shannon. Be safe, be well, and always be kind.
Thank you for listening to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. If you wish to be a guest on the show, you can go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast and schedule your pre-recording. Please follow this podcast on Spotify, even if you listen to it on other streaming sites. Also, this podcast is on every first Monday and last Monday of the month at 7 p.m. and every Sunday at 6 and 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Amy Shannon. Be safe, be well, and always be kind.